Amen. Praise God. About 5 years ago, I had a stroke and paralyzed on my right side. And you know.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you all so much. That was gorgeous. Thank you all for being here today. I'm excited to welcome you to Edenton Street United Methodist Church. And I wanted to give you just a couple of quick announcements so that you kind of feel comfortable here in the space. I first want to, again, thank the choir. Thank you all so much for bringing music. I also want to offer thanks to Emmanuel there in the back and our Edenton Street team who are here today helping greet and provide our tech and everything that's making this space for us today. How was the food? Thank you to the Justice Center and Wasaka for our food today. That was delicious. I got some this time, which was exciting. I hope you got plenty of food too. If you need the restroom, if you go straight out the back doors, make a left like you came in. The restrooms, the women's room and then the men's room are down the hall. There's also a single stall restroom downstairs if you need it as a family restroom. I mentioned food and drink. Tables. If you are done eating and you don't need your table space, we invite you to move to the middle. We have a lot of people here and we just want to be sure that everybody has space to eat and be comfortable. So thank you for helping fill in the chairs. And then last but not least, we have a lot of little folks with us today, which is so exciting. We have crafts up here on these front two tables for kids. Kids of all ages, so adults, if you need a craft, come get one too. But we have a couple of different crafts for the kids to participate in and take home. So we hope you'll come up and have some fun with us. Anything else, Sarah? Anything else? We're good? Okay, well I'm going to call up our next folks. I'll hand over the mic over to Marcus.
And let's give Suzanne a round of applause, y'all. It takes a lot. It takes a lot to plan the day that we've had. Just think about it. How many people were up with us this morning at 9 o'clock, 9:30 in front of the Supreme Court? How many of you all marched with us from the Capitol ground to the General Assembly for that awesome press conference? And now here we are now. If you are in school, for those students that are here, the students, let me hear you make some noise. Now, you know, this is the time after lunch where we really got to focus the most. And sometimes the most difficult class happens right after lunch. But this conversation is going to be a very easy conversation because the people that are leading this conversation with me have for years been fighting for public education. The individuals you're going to see as a part of this conversation represent a collective fight of over close to 200 years for public schools. And what I really want us to do is take time in this conversation and listen. Because we did not get into this situation 30 years ago. A lot of people have been talking about 1994 and 30 years ago as if in 1993 public schools were fine and then in 1994 they became bad. That's not the case. What we are seeing today and what we are witnessing today is not just a 30-year fight. It's much longer than that. And so for the time that we have the individuals, they need no introduction, but for those of you that may not be aware, I want to take time just to give you a little introduction of the gentleman and gentlewoman that we'll have speaking today. By the way, my name is Marcus Bass. I have the pleasure of serving as Executive Director of Advanced Carolina, also a part of the Coordinating Committee of Every Child, Deputy Director for the Black Alliance. I want to give a huge shout out to some members of our team that have been here. I want to give a shout out to Kate Brown, our Organizing Director, and also our Program and Policy Director for the Black Alliance in Advance, Ms. Jovita Lee. And I want to read to you very quickly the biography of one gentleman in particular. I hit the high notes. I'm going to hit the high notes here. Now, we have had the pleasure of hearing from Attorney Thompson. He's been a part of our fight even before we started fighting in this Every Child formation. But how many people know that our mentors have mentors? And sitting beside Attorney Thompson is the mentor extraordinaire. I want to take you back real quick to 1954. How many people here remember 1954? That number is getting smaller and smaller. But guess what? 1954 was just yesterday. In 1954, the gentleman to my left was not the distinguished elder that you see today. In 1954, he was a senior at then North Carolina Central College, not North Carolina Central University. Now, before that, he was a student in Hertford County High School, Winton, in Hertford County. Now, when we talk about Hertford County today and we look at 2024 and we see some disparity, this gentleman can let you know that the disparity started well before 1994. In essence, it may have started well before 1954. So Dr. Dudley Flood, let's give him a round of applause. You have come a long way in a short period of time. I want you first though, before you talk about where you are headed in this current formation, before we talk about 2024, as an education major, preparing to be a teacher, were you preparing to be a teacher? In 1954, there was something significant that happened. The Brown versus Board of Education decision. You are a student about to enter into the classroom as a professional in the midst of integration, or the start of integration. And now here in 2024, we are still trying to attempt to integrate. Take us back to 54. Where were you? What were you thinking? And did you think we would still be on this forward march today trying to integrate schools and provide a sound, quality, basic education?
I did not think we would be at this point. As a matter of fact, there has been a time when we were not at this point. We've recapitulated to a degree. But in 1954, when Brown 1 was adjudicated, I marveled at the language of Brown 1, which said that we have determined that your schools are inherently unequal. And I said, it took you 200 years to figure that out? I knew that when I was in third grade. But thank goodness Thurgood Marshall knew that as well. So he filed a move for further relief, which led us to Brown 2. Then Brown 2 declared that we must move, listen to this language, forthwith, with deliberate speed, to dismantle the dual school system and to remove the vestiges thereof. Now that's two separate entities. Dismantling the dual school system is a legal matter. Removing the vestiges thereof will be going on for the rest of your life. Certainly hasn't been going on for all of my life. Now that's not to be critical, that's to be analytical, because I don't despair, I'm not a victim. I'm a proactivist. I believe that you understand something before you can fix it. And there are too many of us who haven't understood what we were dealing with over this period of time. But the dismantling of the dual school system was simply a legal matter. That is, you had to remove the barriers that inhibited people to have an equitable educational opportunity. Now that didn't guarantee anything except opportunity. That's what it guaranteed. It didn't guarantee success. It guaranteed opportunity.
So, all right, so pause right there. He said it guaranteed opportunity. The language equal opportunity is what was the resulting factor of Brown versus Board, correct? Equal opportunity. Just hold that, because that means something different when we talk about North Carolina education. Go ahead.
Yes. So the equal opportunity element led North Carolina at that time to create what they referred to as freedom of choice, which started really officially in 1955. Freedom of choice declared that if you were in a school in which your race was in the majority, and you chose to move to a school in which your race was in the minority, you would be guaranteed transportation. That was a guarantee. Other things were incidental, but that was all you were guaranteed, was transportation. So that for that provision, you had to accommodate whatever the local board had assigned you to in its district. Now, I should say before we get farther that we had three manners in which those schools were making their decision. The first was what we call 441 compliance. That was voluntary compliance. And that is, there were some school systems, about a third of those in the state, chose to make their own compliance plans, and they were audited. They didn't have to do anything but prove that they were making progress toward this Leandro school system. There was about another third who was under some court order, having had a lawsuit filed against them. And they had to be adjudicated by a federal judge, and the federal judge would have his method or her method, and mostly his. At that time, we had very few, if any, women federal judges active in 1954 or so. And then the third was the person who had a lawsuit filed against them. So it was about one third, at that particular time. Now keep in mind that because we had 152 school districts in the state of North Carolina at that time, the state remanded the authority for schools back to the local boards of education. To that point, we were a state-driven school system. Virtually everything done was done through and by the state. Well, they remanded the authority back to the local school systems, which meant what? There had to be 152 separate cases or separate plans, as opposed to there having been one. If the state had remained, one class action suit would have been all you needed to have action throughout the state. So the freedom of choice did have one plus, and that was gave us a runway to learn how to do something. If we'll take off a plane, it's a big plane, you need a long runway. Not quite as long as we had, but we did need some time for people to begin to think, change narratives and all that kind of thing. So in 49, we were sentenced to a school. I mean, you had no authority as to which school you went to. You were sentenced. And for me, it was a good sentence. I was in a school district, which, given the circumstances, we got a good basic education. What we did not get was all the opportunity that we might have gotten, no matter how good we were then. What might we have been had we had a great opportunity brought it? For personal reference, the school in which I attended, we had one class of physics. And the quote, college-bound student. The biggest misnomer I know about the college-bound student was one who took physics. Now, when I get to North Carolina Central, everybody I knew had physics, and I'm trying to catch up with them who had physics in high school. So I'm a deprived student, not by my intellect. I ran into some people who had a high intellect too, by the way, but not as many as you might think. But I ran into a lot of them who were better off than I. And this was when Central was an all-black, for the most part, school. But the discrepancy had been my opportunity, because had we had an opportunity to have physics, but I had to choose between physics and French, which, by the way, was the only foreign language we had. And at that time, if you didn't have a foreign language, you would not be admitted to a college, a university. I suspect that's probably true now, but it was over at that time. So I got to take French instead of physics. And then when I get to school, I find out that all the people around me have had whatever that exposure was that led them to be prepared for the sciences. So STEM, I didn't get STEM. I got the main things in biology, general science, and that sort of thing. I still haven't had physics.
Dr. Flood, let me stop you real quick. So, 1950s, you were preparing to go from a high school in North Carolina to a college in North Carolina. And at this time, North Carolina Central University was not a part of the UNC system. So it didn't have the funding of the other, Carolinas and NC States. It was an HBCU, and even then it was underfunded, and North Carolina wasn't part of the system. But even still, you didn't have the necessary qualifications in order to be prepared to go to North Carolina Central properly at that time.
Absolutely. In many of the areas, we were reasonably well prepared, but in those areas to which we had not been exposed, and that was because of lack of funding, that was because of the teachers that I had were excellent teachers in high school, excellent. Obviously they were, because we had the crumb of the crumb. That's the only place a black teacher could work, was in a black school. So we had the best there were of them, but we didn't have the plethora of people that others had been exposed to.
Now, folks in the audience may not recognize this. Let me let you break this down. Where is Hertford County, North Carolina? Hertford County is in the northeastern part of the state. More people may refer to it as the Outer Banks part of our state. Elizabeth City is the largest big city there. But at that time, Hertford County had an outstanding amount of educated black professionals. They also were one of the, if I'm not mistaken, tobacco capitals of the state. You would actually take your tobacco from all over the region and they would take it to market in Hertford County, correct? So that means Hertford County was not this, at that time, 1950s, some small little eastern North Carolina rural town. It was a big city. And even to this day, there is a number of ranking individuals that come from Hertford County. Of course, we're sitting here with one. And even then, in all of that pride of being Hertford County schools, we were still deficient as a state in fully funding education. So it's longer than a 30-year struggle. I just wanted to make sure we got that. And Dr. Flood, before I turn it to Attorney Thompson, I want to ask you this last question. What propelled you, understanding the challenges that you faced in Hertford County schools at that time, what made you decide then that you still wanted to be an educator?
Thankfully, I came from a family of educators. I come from a family of 9, 6 of whom were educators ultimately. Of course, I was the quote knee baby, so I had no choice. I studied while they studied. I should never go in the 1st or 2nd grade because I already had that. At the dinner table where they studied, we required all of us in my household to study. And I probably did learn some things in 1st and 2nd grade, but it was a city, a town in which education was primary in your mind. It wasn't a choice. My father, who was almost in the 5th grade, would say to me, son, my job is to go out here and work on the riverboat. Your job is to go to school. Every day you see me doing my job, I expect to see you doing your job. So I never had the pleasure of skipping school. And that was the ethos of Winton. Winton was the primary town in which I lived, but Hertford County is just a county. Nobody says I'm from a town. Winton, Hoskin, Murfreesboro, and Harrisburg. You're from Hertford County because we were so interdependent, and we knew we were interdependent. The economy and everything else was around the county, as was the education. But having come from a family of educators, I was aware that my opportunities in 1954, when I would graduate, would be about 4 things. Could have been a minister. I could have been a barber. I could have been a lawyer, but I would starve death back then if I'd been a lawyer because I would have only had black clients and they would have been speeding tickets. That would have been it in 1954 when I came out. Now, a few people came out a little much later. That Julius Chambers was 4 years behind me. A lot had happened in 4 years. Or I could be a teacher. But the real reason was that I was inculcated to believe that you had to make a public contribution to the society to pay for your being here on earth. And the only way I could see that I was sure I could do that was by teaching. Because I knew that I could make people better than they had heretofore been. I knew that. Whether they had any money, or whether they had any declaration, or whether they had any proclivity, I knew that I could do that. And so that's what drove me into teaching. And I've been able to get out of it.
Don't get out. Let's give him a round of applause. Dr. Dudley Flood. Now, if you ever get a second after the day to just Google Dudley Flood, you will recognize the dynamic person that is standing before us today. And to say that in the same breath of me now going to Angus Thompson, we are truly in the presence in Black History Month of North Carolina excellence. Attorney Thompson, for people that may not get it completely, and Leandro is not about black or white, it's about at risk. And it's more so a cycle of at risk. There are several populations of students that are at risk. But for those of us that still may not quite get it, what is the connection? How is Brown versus the Board of Education and Leandro? How are these cases related? Are they cousins? Are they niece and nephew? What is the relationship that we need to understand when we're talking about this very historic landmark case in the 40-year span of time and now 30-year span of time between each of them?
Thank you. First of all, let me just say it's just a pleasure being in the presence of Dr. Dudley Flood. I can listen to this man all day. To answer your question, let me just take you back to 1896, Plessy versus Ferguson. Plessy versus Ferguson was a case that actually arose out of Louisiana. But it basically stood for the doctrine of separate but equal, which the court basically said in that case that the races can be separate. It actually had to do with a train and whether to integrate a train. And that doctrine, separate but equal, that you can live separate but equal. Separate but equal. That's not humanity. We're all brothers and sisters. And that doctrine, basically the courts upheld it. The body politics basically tried to make us believe it, and that we could be separate and equal. And so Brown effectively overruled that decision. I say effectively because they didn't say it was overruled. But Brown versus Board of Education said that that doctrine would no longer exist. You could not be. And it took you're talking about from 1896 to the first Brown decision in 1954, second Brown decision in 1955 was the decision that they had to come back because the South, the southern states weren't moving enough. They said you got to move with all deliberate speed in the 55 decision. But that decision, after all of those years, and it took a lot of struggle, you all, during those years of us trying to be separate and equal. Actually, I digress and say in Robeson County, we had a protest in 1946 with student. It was a student protest, and you know, most protests they ain't worth a darn without students. You ever notice that? That's right. If the students, and it takes the students to get involved because it's really about students and their life. But we had a protest in 1946. I wasn't even born. I was born in 1952, and you talking about 1954 when you was at high school. But we thought, and all across the state of North Carolina now, from Plessy to Brown, you know, there were lawsuits and protests saying, look, we just want to be equal. We want equal facilities. We want the same, we want books. We want the same, our teachers being paid the same. We want the same athletic facilities. We want the same courses, as Dr. Flood said. But it couldn't happen, and it didn't happen. And so Brown versus Board of Education was the unanimous decision by the U.S. Supreme Court that said that doctrine no longer works. It can no longer, it's proven it can't work. And so that we must now integrate the schools. And the NAACP, Thurgood Marshall, and the Special Legal Defense Fund basically changed strategies. Instead of trying to sue these school boards to give us a high school that would be equal to the white high school, they changed and said it won't work, so we need to integrate. Now, that was a 1954-1955 Brown decision. Well, it took, as Dr. Flood has alluded to, it took almost 2 decades to integrate after Brown. I applied to go to school in 1965 in 8th grade under freedom of choice, and I was denied my choice.
Didn't have a choice.
I didn't have a choice. The vouchers that you see today, there were vouchers in the 50 after Brown, so that whites could leave the public schools, have their own private schools, and be funded. Does that sound familiar?
History.
Vouchers.
Present history.
Vouchers. All right, yeah, and then we're not even at 1994.
We come on, take it, come on.
Okay, so now I come from a county that's traditionally triracial. The Lumbee Indians, Native American, blacks, and whites. And now we have about 9% Hispanic population. But back then, in 1994, by the way, in Robeson County, we had 5 school systems. 5 school systems, one of the poorest counties in the state. We had 5 superintendents. We had a combination of 11 associates and assistant superintendents.
5 in one county.
5 in one county.
Dr. Flood mentioned that at the time there were 100 and how many? 152 school districts. How many counties are in North Carolina? 100. Simple math.
And we had 5 of them.
And 5 were in one county. One county today has 3. That's for another test.
Well, the thing about that is that, and this was in 1994, and we had in Robeson County actually a pretty good coalition of Native Americans and blacks, social movement, political movement to change Robeson County. We actually learned some math that together we could become politically engaged and get elected to body politics. Henry Fry was the first black to elected to the General Assembly, North Carolina General Assembly, but Joy Johnson was the second. A year after, Henry Fry was elected out of Guilford County. And Joy Johnson, a black preacher, was elected. And so we decided, now, look, we got 5 school systems. These 5, look, Lumberton, Fairmount, Roland, St. Pauls, and Red Springs. All of these city school systems were predominantly white. And we had the one county system, which was then predominantly Indian or Native American. And so it came, we just figured out that, look, we can't even afford, we're one of the poorest counties in the state. And we got all these, we got superintendents, we got all these facilities, and we can't even afford to improve 1 or 2 of them. So we came together. And what happened, I'm gonna tell you something. And this is, even in the state today, I do not understand the People's House, where you have legislators who come from rural North Carolina.
Talk about it.
Well, we have the poorest health care, we have the poorest schools, and they don't care anything about their cousins or their brothers and sisters back home, but they want to go private. And when you're poor now, I'm tell you something, whether you believe it or not, there's more poor white folks than poor black folks. Because there's more of you all than there are. And so a lot of folks don't realize that. We understood blacks, Indians, and whites in Robeson County that they were getting shafted in the rural parts of the counties by these city schools. The city schools were better off because they had supplemental tax. So we consolidated those 5 school systems. But it didn't take long. In 1989, we consolidated, but by 1994, and we had worked for 5 years with these other 4 counties, Halifax, Vance, Cumberland, and Hope, in raising enough money to hire a lawyer, which was Bob Spearman out of Rock.
Now stop right there.
Yeah.
Perfect segue, because what we have done in effect, we just took you from 1954 through the 50s and 60s, all the way up to 1994. Now in 1994, there was a young lady that was receiving an award for the top school advocate, the top child's advocate out of New York. After that, she would decide to get married, and in 1994, after receiving that award, she would meet a man and move to Hope County in 2004, 20 years ago, in the midst of Leandro 2. And so to bring forth this next young lady that's going to give us from 1994 until today and what is happening, I want to make sure we recognize this last thing. We are talking about a practitioner in the field of education. Now we're talking about an advocate turned attorney in the field of education. In this fight, we're going to need both practitioners and we're going to need lawyers and advocates. And most importantly, for those of us that were at the General Assembly, we know we're going to need political power. I want to give a shout out to Representative Von Haven, who was at the event this morning and was one of our leaders. But the young lady that's coming up is one of our very own that said, not only am I one of the lead plaintiff counties, not only am I going to be an advocate for children at a micro level, at a macro level, I'm going to put my name on the ballot and run for office. Please welcome Councilwoman Jackie McLean to the stage.
Everybody.
All right, so now we've gone all the way up until 1994. Take us into this moment. I want you to take us into Hope County. What were the conditions? What did you see in Hope County? Coming from New York, you know equal opportunity. You know what it looks on the good side and bad side. But folks didn't know how bad it was and how good it could get in Hope County. Take us there.
All right, greetings. So we're going to fast forward to 1994. 1994, my daughter entered into high school. She was not only an accelerated academic scholar, so that means she required extra courses, AP courses, honor courses. There were very few of those. But what we found when we went to Hope County High School, where I am happy to say that I am employed there, what we found when we went to Hope County High School was that in the listing of the syllabus, which gives you the outline of what that child is scheduled to learn per semester, correct? And so as a parent engaged and involved, I wanted to make sure that what was on that syllabus was going to be meeting the needs of my student. But I'm also a parent engaged and involved with other parents. And we were a mixture of minority parents, black, white, yellow, red. But we were there together, we were working, we walked the halls. We talked to teachers. We held fundraisers. Every game, every athletic event, we were out there with buckets asking for funds. Why were we asking for funds? Because there was such a deficit in our schools. Our students didn't have enough of books. At the very least, science books were few. The students could not take their books home to study or to, do whatever it is they needed to do in an advanced level. So the students were required to share the books during the day. So homework was done in class pretty much because they didn't have the means to carry the books home. Math was the same. Science required labs. Well, there were no labs. There were classrooms with sinks, but there were no test tubes. There were no science, biology items that would allow them to be able to do hands-on. The young man for whom Leandro was named, Rob Leandro, and my nephew and my daughter were all athletic as well as academic scholars. In Rob's class, in order for them to get the information they needed for their science class, they watched videos and movies from Duke University student science labs. So they followed that. That was the way they were learning what they needed to learn. That's not hands-on. What was happening across next door, Cumberland County, was discarding those very books that we needed because they were getting new books on a regular. What did we do? We sent truckloads across the county to pick up those discarded books. And those discarded books were handed out to our students. So we were getting everybody's leftover, nothing was good for us. And at the same time, all of those emotional, social issues that were upon us, we didn't see all of that. But we began to ask the question, what about us? What about Hope County? We are not getting what we deserve, and so the lawsuit. Miss Leandro and her husband, and let me give you just a little bit, the Leandro family were very progressive and still are progressive. But at the same time, compassionate enough to see the need because, again, her son was friends with neighborhood kids. And so when you're dealing with kids, kids don't see what adults see. They just see friendship. They just see, my sister has a need, my brother has a need. They may go home and tell mom and daddy different things. But we were offering to buy books. I personally offered to buy books that would help facilitate what my child needed. But at the same time, it would help facilitate the needs of another child. So Captain Leandro and her husband, along with a number of others, got together and talked about how to get what we needed for our kids. And it seemed the only way to get what we needed for our kids was to file this lawsuit against the state of North Carolina. And so ensued the 1994 Leandro versus the state of North Carolina. Here we are some 30 years later, some 3 generations later, and we are still fighting, and we're still asking, and we're saying, give us what we deserve, give us our children's money. We need money. We're saying, cut the daggone check. What is all of this issue about? And so now the strategy has kind of twisted. I sat in that courtroom this morning, my head's spinning because the whole notion now is that with all these other counties that joined this lawsuit, the idea now is that if there is to be a remedy, then the remedy will only fall within Hope County. The premier advocates and the premier petitioners. Not so. We're not taking that. We are not taking that. North Carolina, what is the purpose of education anyway? What is it? If it's not the furtherance of opportunities, academic, socialization, and transformation for our children that they can live better lives, that we can improve our economy through what our children produce, right? Because we know that a dropout is going to become a burden on somebody, right? But we're not asking for dropouts. We're asking that they drop the money in their account. Drop the money in the account and end this madness. It is ridiculous that you know that the students are suffering. The question was asked this morning, how many of the kids or how many of the original plaintiffs are students today? How ridiculous is that? They may not be the plaintiffs today, but their children and their children's children are the plaintiffs. So we have not gone away, and we won't go away. And we need you guys to go to the polls, and we need you guys to stand up, and we need you guys to vote them out. It's what we need you guys to do. Send the message that we are sick and tired of being sick and tired. Better than him, all right? Use your voting power. Go to the polls, and not just talk about it, but be about it. Let's walk the talk and talk the walk, and show them that we the citizens, we put you in, we can take you out. I thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Councilmember Jackie McLean. As we come to a close for this portion, and Christy and team, please everyone stay with us. We have an exciting next half, but I want us to know something. If you have learned anything from this panel, I want you to recognize that we are all a part of this fight. All of us may not have been here in 54, a lot of us may not have been here in 94 or 2004. We're here today and we're committed to working together. I look at Faith Hal Bay, our county lead out of Johnson County, and her son. We're here so her son can have a vibrant future in education. We thank you all, and also we would like to thank and recognize the organizing team for every child. We want to really recognize those folks that have been standing up and spending out late hours, putting this together, making this happen. Yes, and Christy, please, we want to make sure we recognize you too for all of your hard work. And to our panelists, thank you so much for taking us through this. That history time for today. You know this, you may come to church, but if you don't stay until the benediction, you miss your blessing. So it's one thing to come and get up early in the morning, but if you don't stay until the end, you've missed the whole party. So as Travis takes us through his, I want us to be committed to the action steps in this early fight, this long-term fight for education. Travis, come on.
Tyris. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Tyris Jones, and I hail from Laurinburg, North Carolina. And I am here. In Laurinburg, we had a black private school called Laurinburg Institute that was founded in 1904 at the request of Booker T. Washington. And my mother graduated from that school in 1958, and she became the first black secretary at the Scotland County Board of Education. And I stand on her shoulders today. I'm getting ready to take you on a storytelling journey. Ooh, I'm getting ready to take you on a storytelling journey. Founda, Alafia, Ashe, Ashe. Founda, Alafia, Ashe, Ashe. Founda, Alafia, I welcome you. Founda, Alafia, Ashe, Ashe. A Nazi the spider, this clever little spider, who had 8 eyes and 8 legs, meandered through the jungle from branch to limb to branch. One day he overheard that in Yami, the sky god had all the stories in the world. And this little small creature thought to himself, how am I going to get those stories? Well, he goes to Inyami and he says, Inyami, I want all the stories in the world. Oh, Anansi, you want all the stories in the world? Yes, I want all the stories in the world. Well, since you want all the stories in the world, there are 3 things that you must bring me. First, you must bring me Umbaro the hornets. Then you must bring me old Nini the python. Then you must bring me old Zebo the leopard. Umbaro the hornets. Old Nini the python. Old Zebo the leopard. All 3. I think I can do it. I know I can do it. So a Nazi the spider, this clever little spider who had 8 eyes and 8 legs, meandered through the jungle from branch to limb to branch. He sees the Umbaro hornets buzzing around, and he thinks to himself, how am I going to get these hornets? Well, he looks to his right, and there's a flowing river. And beside that river is a large calabash, which is a boat. And beside that calabash is a little gourd with a hole in the middle of it. So a Nazi, the spider, this clever little spider, scoops up the water, throws the water in the air, and the hornet said, "Oh my God, it's raining. Oh my God, it's raining. We have nowhere to go. Oh my God, it's raining. We have nowhere to go." A Nazi, the spider, this clever little spider, held up the little gourd with the hole in the middle of it, and he said, "You can fly in here." All the hornets flew into the gourd. He took a ball of grass, and clogged up a hole, created an elaborate web around the gourd, and he began this little jumping from branch to limb to branch. Gets to Inyami, the sky god. Inyami! Inyami! I have Umara the hornets! Very good, Nazi the spider. You clever little spider. Now you must bring me Onini the python. Onini the python. Onini the python. I think I can do it. I know I can do it. So a Nazi the spider, this clever little spider, once again began to jump from branch to branch, and he sees Onini the python lying in the tall blade of grass. Now, just the night before, they had a conversation about Onini, trying to figure out if he was longer or stronger, shorter or weaker. Longer, stronger, shorter or weaker. Longer, stronger, shorter or weaker. Well, Onini overheard a Nazi having that conversation out loud. And Onini slithers out. A Nazi, you're talking to yourself? Oh, Onini! You overheard me! Well, yeah, me and my wife had a conversation about you, and we were trying to figure out if you were longer or stronger, shorter or weaker. Longer or stronger, shorter or weaker. Longer or stronger, shorter or weaker. Would you like for me to help you? If you promise not to eat me, my wife, and kids. I promise. So I not see the spider. Snapped off a branch, laid it on the ground. Okay. Oh, Lily, I need you to slither along the branch. So, Onini slithered along the branch. Okay, now I need you to take your hand and I need you to stretch. He snapped the vine, tied his head to the top of the branch. Very good. Very, very good. Now, I need you to take your tail and I need you to stretch. He snapped another vine, tied his tail to the end of the branch. You're not longer, stronger, nor shorter or weaker. You're foolish. He creates an elaborate web around Onini the python, goes up to Inyami the sky god. Inyami, Inyami, I have Onini the python. Very good, Nazi the spider. You clever little spider. Now, you must bring me Osibo the leopard. Osibo the leopard. Osibo the leopard. For real. For real. For real, for real. For real, for real. So deep, 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 deep in the jungle, in the middle of the night, a Nazi spider. This clever little spider with 8 eyes and 8 legs. Sometimes you can't even see him with the naked eye. They're all covered with sand and leaves. And he goes and sits on a branch. Osibo the leopard, who was deep in the jungle, hunting for food, wandering in the middle of the night. All of a sudden, bloop, he falls in the hole. Help! Oh, Sibo! Is that you? A Nazi! I need help!
promise not to eat me, my wife, and kids. I promise. So I not see the spider. It's clever little spider. Climbed to the top of the tree. Tied a rope to the very top. And miraculously, this little creature was able to bend the tree over the hole with the rope dangling down. Okay. Oh, Simon, I need you to tie the rope to your tail. Tie the rope to the tail. Tie the rope to your tail. Oh, Simon, tie the rope. Is it tight? It's tight. Is it real tight? Man, it's tight. And he snatches old Simon the leopard out of the hole. Takes a little small dagger. Creates an elaborate web around old Simon the leopard. And once again, he meanders through the jungle from branch to limb to branch. He gets to Inyami the sky god. Inyami! Inyami! I have old Simon the leopard! Oh! Very good, Nazi little spider. You clever little spider. No noble man. No rich man. No ordinary man has ever completed those 3 tasks. But since you have, I will grant you all the stories in the world. Thank you. Supreme Court, you have a task to complete. We need our funds for the schools. Shuck it, duck, quack, quack, and I don't own the rights to that. You all be glad.
Give it up for Tyris Jones, storyteller from South Carolina. Incredible. Christy Sellers, I want you to take a stand. Christy organized her community. She's been working around the clock to pull out this beautiful Black meditation. We appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you to all the panelists. Reverend Ford, I see you back there. Please take another round of applause along with these Ramirez, who are incredible MCs who guided us throughout this entire day. We are going to wrap up this program. We are going to be back in a few short weeks to be advocating for what our children need and to demand full funding of the Leandro plan at the legislature. Join us. We will share the plans for our next advocacy day. No one is alone in this struggle, okay? The leaders that we heard from and learned from today show us that this is a long fight. We're in the right one. We're on the right side of history, and we got the best people imaginable leading this fight here in North Carolina. Thank you, everyone. Get home safe. Stay connected to every child on the scene. Thank you.
This was amazing. My goodness, I'll be back.